Hello, my name is Samantha Steidel, and I'm working toward a PhD in community college leadership from Old Dominion University. My research emphasis is on how entrepreneurial initiatives can generate alternative revenue streams for financial sustainability in higher education. I house my research and consulting under Innovation Agency. But I'd like to start off by telling you a little bit about my journey in academia. I worked at the community college in Virginia for approximately 6 years, serving first as an adjunct instructor and then later as a full-time entrepreneurship and marketing professor. And then later, I also worked in workforce development and institutional advancement. So I learned quite a bit about grants and the foundation during my time in that department. But before my time in academia, I was an entrepreneur. And if you've ever been one, you know that you are always one at heart. So that problem-solving mentality, it's always there. And that's probably why I was able to work in academia for so long. There were plenty of problems to work on. Some of the problems that stood out to me were decreased enrollment, increased regulations, changing technology, especially decreased government funding. That was a pretty consistent conversation. Increased private competition from both online and private institutions, disruptive innovation, and this all impacted student affordability. So all these together seemed like they were creating the perfect storm for higher education. Did you know that there are over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States? But Harvard Business School professor Clay Christensen, who's also the founder of the concept of disruptive innovation, says that half are bound for bankruptcy in the next few decades. And although that comment was seen as controversial, he's not the only one. The U.S. Department of Education predicts closure rates for small colleges and universities will triple and mergers will double in the coming years. So in typical entrepreneur fashion, I started reading everything I could about this topic. I started brainstorming and mind mapping. I wanted to know why this was happening and what we as institutions could do to better prepare for this coming tsunami. Some people thought I was crazy for worrying, but I thought they were crazy for not worrying. After all, this was their job we were talking about. So this led me to a key research question. How can academic institutions leverage entrepreneurial initiatives to generate alternative revenue streams for financial sustainability? How are we aligning, prioritizing, and leveraging for the future of higher education? And specifically, what is the financial reality surrounding this topic? When people say we need alternative revenue streams, what exactly do they mean? Similarly, what do people mean by the words entrepreneurial initiative? Most importantly, where is the intersection between all of these in higher education? You might be wondering why I chose to focus on revenue streams. Study after study showed that that's what presidents wanted. Here's just one example. A 2014 study titled Resource Allocation and Management Strategies in Times of Fiscal Constraint surveyed 1,352 leaders in higher education. These included CFOs and presidents, vice presidents and chancellors, and they found that the strategies least likely to be implemented are those resulting in a reduction of positions, funding, and activities, while the strategies most likely to be adopted are those generating alternative revenue, cultivating revenue streams, and emphasizing teamwork across different departments. Interestingly, presidents weren't sure exactly where to start across these studies as well. Here's another example. This article focuses on resource dependency theory and examines the mindset of 9 community college presidents. The researchers found that they're turning to alternative revenue sources of funding, which they describe as fundraising, grants, alumni, and business alliances to supplement state funding declines. Also interesting is this study, which examined entrepreneurial non-traditional fundraising behaviors of 23 community college presidents. The findings indicate that entrepreneurial presidents do in fact exist, and that their efforts typically result in an increase in non-traditional funding. While analyzing the literature, this chart stood out to me as shocking. Between 2008 and 2017, funding in Arizona dropped by 53%. Maricopa Community College, like all others in Arizona, received no state funding in 2017 or 2018. In fact, 33 states came in below their original budget forecast, and in 2017, 23 states made mid-year cuts to their budgets totaling $4.9 billion. A report released in June of 2017 by the Rockefeller Institute of Government also found sluggish growth in state tax revenue. The report's authors said weaknesses in income and sales tax collections, declines in corporate tax revenue, and steep drops in severance taxes from oil and gas production have collectively limited the amount of revenue available to states for higher education. Christina Hubbard, the director of strategic research at EAB, made headlines when she said, "We're in an okay spot until 2025, and then a cliff's going to happen." She was referring to the changes in traditional student enrollment that we all should be paying attention to right now. But before we move on, I want to define some key terms, since they can mean different things to different people. Alternative revenue streams are defined as funds that are not based on a college's established funding formula, primarily state revenue, local taxes, tuition, and fees. However, they may include new fundraising initiatives, corporate ventures, including retail, catering, and leasing land reclamation. Here's a comprehensive chart of examples of alternative revenue streams which EAB compiled, and you can find on the internet with these search terms, Alternative Revenues in Higher Education, EAB. It's interesting to note that many of the articles that I reviewed found that although presidents are interested in alternative revenue streams, they were also intimidated by the topic, and often they weren't quite sure where to start. For a broad perspective on these options, this is a great place to start. One portion in particular that stood out to me as interesting was academic entrepreneurship infrastructure. This section listed several ideas for increasing revenue streams under the umbrella of entrepreneurship. However, I felt they were missing some critical pieces of the puzzle. There's so much more to entrepreneurial initiatives than this. So with this in mind, it's also important that we define the terms entrepreneurial initiatives. So the terms entrepreneurial initiatives are defined at Harvard University as initiatives that encourage the pursuit of opportunity beyond resources currently controlled. This study identified what a community college leader considered entrepreneurial initiatives. One of these that stood out to me as odd was number one, which is increasing tuition and fees. However, if the entrepreneurial president thinks of the institution as a business, that could be considered a perfectly normal entrepreneurial decision. However, there's so much that you can do beyond just raising prices, and admittedly, these won't all work for every single institution. So it's important you consider all of your options and determine which of these are right for your school. The researcher in this study organized the findings based on the level of success in increasing revenue that each initiative had. Knowing this could be helpful for you in prioritizing your options. So the challenge here lies in cross-referencing the alternative revenue streams with the entrepreneurial initiatives in order to increase financial sustainability. And finally, it's important we define entrepreneurial philanthropy. Entrepreneurial philanthropists are donors in search of entrepreneurs to solve societal problems by increasing the measured philanthropic impact of connected nonprofit organizations through a tailored investment of their economic assets, acquiring on a non-for-profit basis a symbolic capital. Here's an example. The Kellogg Foundation's mission-driven investing portfolio is focused on the financial, social, and learning returns. With this in mind, Education Dive examined whether colleges should consider impact investing for endowments. ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Government Fund. One example of an ESG investor is Vermont's Middlebury College, which launched its initiative in 2010. The ESG portion of Middlebury's $1.1 billion endowment has increased from $8 million to $50 million since 2015. Here are some examples of revenue generated through initiatives that were either directly or indirectly attributed to entrepreneurship. Just a few examples that stood out to me are as follows. Walla Walla Community College in Walla Walla, Washington received $5 million to create a viticulture program and incubator. In 2000, there were only 20 wineries in the region, and today there are over 140. This is what's called a triple helix initiative, or a third wave entrepreneurial initiative, which consisted of government, academia, and private industry partnering together for the financial benefit of everyone involved. Los Angeles Community College received $2.2 million from the Goldman Sachs Foundation for the 10,000 Small Businesses Initiative. The funding amount is impressive, yes. However, what's even more impressive is how the Louisiana Technical and Community College system leveraged their participation in that same program. In addition to engaging and promoting small business, they also sent their top community college leaders to the program in order to rethink their own business model within the community college system. And what resulted was pretty impressive. Similarly, North Iowa Community College received $1.1 million from a private donor in order to create the Papa John Business Center. In one of the articles citing this donation, it was estimated that the center would generate over $900 million in impact for the region within 5 years. As we well know, community colleges and four-year institutions are very different. One of the major differences that I noticed was in the various donation amounts from the donors. Whereas the majority of the higher end community college donations ranged from $600,000 to $9 million, the majority of the university donations for these initiatives, similar initiatives, ranged between $5 million and $150 million. Most of these donations were for the purposes of establishing or supporting entrepreneurship and innovation through naming rights. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one of these donations with you, but I hope by doing the heavy lifting to find out for you what was donated to who, for what, it might prompt some thought in your institution as to what you could request donations for and what donations are being approved for. Now, since a majority of the major revenue that we've discussed in this presentation comes from entrepreneurial philanthropy, I wanted to leave you with 3 tips for tapping into these initiatives based on the trends throughout the literature. Economists at Boston College's Center on Wealth and Philanthropy have estimated that between $41 and $136 trillion will be transferred between generations. So who are these entrepreneurial philanthropists and what drives this new generation of donors? Well, here's what I found out that they want. They want to invest in social, environmental, and economic goals, and they want to invest in the nonprofits that shape and achieve them. They aim to support large-scale transformational benefits that address problems within society. They want an integration of social impact into the organizational strategy and an awareness campaign that tells the story. They target an underserved, neglected, and disadvantaged population that lacks financial means, often. And it's important to consider the impact metrics for quantifiable results first on the front end. But this doesn't mean that they will shun the profit-making value proposition, and they are concerned, of course, about financial sustainability. Now, with this in mind, it can be powerful, of course, to prioritize the metrics intentionally on the front end. One way of doing this is to review the strategic plans of partners to determine their goals. So by partners, I mean other academic institutions, nonprofits, municipalities, and associations, possibly technology councils. They almost always have strategic plans, and often they'll share these publicly. And so what you're looking for is where do their goals intersect yours, and thereby where can you create win-wins? And how do those goals intersect with the social missions and the interests of the donors? One finding that caught my attention across several different articles was the notable disconnect between the various types of donations. For example, 81,777 foundations in the U.S. gave over $49 billion in 2011, but of that, $1.68 billion went to higher education, which is down from $2.25 billion in 2007. So we need to understand why the disconnect. So I want to leave you with 3 key takeaways. Number 1, this is all going to require a mindset shift for academic and economic development leaders. It's going to require us to think differently in order to tap into the new generation of donors. Number 2, It will also require an acknowledgement and a reimagination of what your value proposition is. What value are you bringing to the customer? What value as higher education institutions are we bringing to our students? And it's going to require us to rethink our entire business model. And number 3, you need to think about who your key partners are within what's called a triple helix model. Who are your key university or other community college partners? Who are your government partners, society and industry, also nonprofits? And who are the people behind these nonprofits that are the key decision makers that can help you collaborate with them? Thank you so much for taking the time to attend this webinar. I hope some of the findings throughout the presentation will help you pave a path to financial sustainability at your institution, or at a minimum, I hope it helped you think differently. Again, if you know of other colleges that should be included and highlighted in this research, please let me know. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and if you're interested in building a case for entrepreneurship at your school, I'm available to help you navigate the way. We're all in this together, and when we share this information, all ships rise. My email is below, Samantha@innovationasap, and I hope you keep in touch. Thanks so much.